I've been starting to write on this because I don't know. I truly believe that so many people are hungry for connection, and also people are flaking more than ever. I've done a lot of work to try to host events, and I used to throw parties. 500 people come to my parties, and it's my stage of life. I'll be 40 this year, and I have friends with kids, and there's different ways that people are there. But even in the phone calls, and the conversations, the way that I'm connecting, it feels more difficult for people. And I don't know what we're being prepared for as like a collective, as a humankind. I think that I've been reading a lot of Emerson lately, and he wrote a lot about the soul and about self-reliance. How do we rely on our own soul to also connect with others? And I do feel like we're being asked to go inward, to reinvestigate what do I really want, deserve. The institutions that used to do all this connecting for us, I think, are decaying. And so we're being asked to connect in different ways that are maybe deeper and a lot more uncomfortable than people are maybe ready for right now. And I feel like I'm ready, and a lot of other people are not ready yet. And so it's a little lonely sometimes.
Welcome to Limitless, the podcast for cycle breakers, change makers, and conscious leaders who are done performing, proving, and pleasing, and are ready to live, lead, and create from deep alignment. I'm your host, Fiona Walsh. Every 2 weeks, I hold space for real soul-expanding conversations with guests who are still in it. They're navigating their biggest fears, shedding old identities, letting go of patterns that no longer serve them, and rising into their limitless potential. Together, we share what it's really like to be human. Messy, raw, imperfect, and learning to own every part of ourselves, even the ones we've tried to keep neatly tucked away. We go deep into the work of coming home to yourself, getting out of your head, feeling safe in your body, letting go of old stories, and creating a life that's true to who you really are. Subscribing to Limitless is the best way to make sure you never miss an episode. So hit pause and tap follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Because this isn't about doing more. It's actually about remembering who you are. And that's what makes you limitless. Welcome to Limitless. Today, I'm joined by Evan. He's a writer, a community builder, and what he calls himself the world's first party coach. After more than 15 years immersed in music festivals, music culture, nightlife, Evan began to ask himself a few deeper questions. One of them being, why do people feel so lonely in a world that's more connected than ever before? We scroll more than we show up. We're overstimulated, and some of us are undernourished. And somewhere along the way, we actually forgot how to connect. Evan's work sits at the intersection of community, identity, and belonging. And through his unique framework, The Party With Him, he helps people rebuild their social lives from the inside out, moving from performance, proving, numbing, and back into presence, participation, and real human connection. But this work didn't come from theory. It came from Evan's own lived experience and an incredible journey, which took him through grief and addiction, sobriety, and years spent inside party culture, first as an escape and eventually as a doorway back into his body. In this conversation on Limitless, we explore grief, nostalgia, connection, and the rituals that bring people together. We talk about the evolution of partying as we move through different stages and phases of life, and why shared experiences matter more than ever, and how we can create spaces that allow us to feel and not just perform. Because maybe the party really isn't out there. Maybe it's something we learn to reconnect with inside ourselves. I'm really glad you're here. So let's dive in. So Evan, welcome to Limitless.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I want you to take us back to a moment in your past, a moment that was pivotal for you in your life, where you went through that thorough mind-body connection of like, something's got to shift. take us back there. What did it look like? What did it feel like?
So we're recording this in mid-March right now. I think March is a tough month for a lot of people. It's a transition time. I mean, even think back to COVID. We got COVID in March, right? March was always, so my mother, it was her least favorite month because she was a gardener and she wanted her flowers to be out and they wouldn't be out. But my mother actually passed away in March. It would be 13 years next week. And she had done hospice at the end, and I got to be with her in the end there. And actually, as I'm speaking this story, while she was in hospice, I was partying very heavily at that time in my life. And she told me, she was like, I want you to go dancing. I want you to go out there. But I remember I went to Ultra Music Festival in Miami.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks before she passed away, and I was dancing. I was already starting to feel so disassociated in my body.
Yeah.
Just drugs and alcohol and numbing. And when she did pass, it was just everything shifted for me. Some people say there's before grief and there's after, when you really experience that in your life. And the first year after that, I was living in New York. She had been in Chicago, and I remember I was living in a Brooklyn kind of like a warehouse with some roommates. And in the days before, I got all my friends around. I was like, I'm going to go on a bender to go to celebrate. I don't even know what I was thinking, but I just wanted to numb.
A reason to party.
Yeah, a reason to party, And I was like, come pity me, come pay attention, come witness my grief. I'm now realizing that's what I was trying to do, was just, I couldn't figure out a way to have this grief witnessed until I was in some state of altered states. I remember we stayed up for 2 days and we were dancing and we had all the costumes on. And while there was some darkness there, my friends that were there speak about how this is some of their favorite time. I love this. This was really, I had so much fun, and to be there for you is really important. So I want to acknowledge that I look on these times with love, but it kicked off a pattern of around March at this time every year, needing that in my life and going on benders or creating chaos in my life and really numbing around this time of year. That finally got to a point where, I was just so disassociated from my body. You could see it in my face and my cheeks and everything. I couldn't process things that were happening in this grief that I had before. So I remember looking up one day and realizing, I was like, I have to get out of this pattern, but not knowing how to get there. So maybe we can go from there. But that was definitely the intro to something's got to change.
Yeah. Okay. You've given me quite a few avenues to explore here. I love it. Let me start with the question I usually like as the first follow-up, and then we can go down some of those avenues, which is, at that point in your life, did you have a clear idea of what you really wanted your life to look and feel like?
I knew that my worst fear was a purposeless life.
Ooh. Okay.
And I was kind of obsessed with legacy, and I loved the Epic of Gilgamesh. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's this it's one of our first stories, Sumerian, Akkadian, kind of an initial flood myth. But long story is, this God man goes on these long journeys and he etches his story in the wall at the end of the story, and that's technically how we read it, right? So he's cemented his legacy.
Cool.
But it's all about, he meets kind of their version of Noah, this immortal. And this idea that I was so afraid of being immortal because everyone around me would die, but wanting to die so that I could have a legacy. And I was very obsessed with how do I create this legacy, and being really afraid of that. And I think my mother's death really kicked up a lot of that fear for me.
Yeah. And it sounds like the paradoxical loop that we can get in of I need a legacy, but I don't have one, and I'm going to get one. And then someone died, and now it's even worse because I'm going to die and I don't have a legacy yet. And okay. Wow.
Yes.
Do you still have that desire, or have you found your purpose in life?
Both.
Yes, sad.
I'm
I love
I'm
it.
really grateful to through some work that I did in a 12-step program. We did a fears inventory of sort of going through what are those fears and how, and it ultimately led to that fear of not having a legacy.
Yeah.
And again, we can dive into this more, but through that work, I was relieved of that need. And also this work as a party coach, as the world's first party coach, I've been able to connect with people. And even if it's just one person, but sometimes I'll just get a direct message from someone who's seen the work that I've done or has had a slight shift in their life because of something that I've shared. And 100 times over, I feel like I've lived a legacy. I could pass tomorrow. I'd be completely content, although I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, cool. Did you have a fear of death growing up as well? I know it's one of the most common fears in people I coach, but did you have that one?
I don't know if I feared it. I think I was very intrigued by it.
Mm.
I'm like a double Scorpio. I have a lot of Scorpio feminine water energy in me and a lot of obsession with that. But I do remember I had an early brush with death when I was 19. I was over in China and I was teaching over there. And long story, I got teaching in China and drank some water that I shouldn't have and ended up, getting some sort of bacterial poisoning and ending up, rural hospital in China with track marks in my arm where I had been in kind of a half coma for a little while and had basically died. And I do remember after that not really being afraid of my own death.
Mm.
But I didn't have a spiritual practice or anything underneath it to resist that. And so I think there was a nihilism
Mm-hmm.
that crept in.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. You also mentioned like this before grief and after grief. Could you speak to your relationship or the evolution of your relationship with grief over the years?
Yeah. I just want to start with, the love that I have for my mom and just so many people in my life that have loved me. And I've always felt very loved
Mm-hmm.
and so grateful for that. And also, because of that, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but for me, it felt like it hurt even more, that I really had this like full love and learning how to exist on the other side of it in what was, very unfair, long 8-year ovarian cancer that my mom dealt with. And I felt like I was in college and right after college and I was living chaotically and feeling like I probably missed time with her because I was selfish. And then the grief moving on top of that of like, she provided this unconditional love for me and I was so selfish in how I behaved and even afterwards. And so I feel like those things compounded the grief for me of I, I felt very selfish and regret around some of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There seems like there's some shame that
Yeah.
came up for
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. They say that love and grief are on the same continuum. So I actually love that you started with that you grew up with so much love because I always believe in terms of like with anything like connection, the more you're open to one end of the spectrum, unfortunately, you're going to dip to the other side as deeply. So that really was resonant for me intuitively when you were answering then of just like you had so much love, but it also meant you had to hold so much grief when it came your way too. Um,
Yes.
and so tell me a little bit about your coping mechanisms because it sounds like partying was one of them and like this is very resonant for me in my 20s as well. So and I think a lot of my listeners are going to be like because they're sort of in the early midlife kind of on and they're maybe not partying anymore, but partying was so fun and social and we connected and it's what we did. But it was also like a numbing and coping mechanism if you're like really honest with yourself. So tell me a little bit about what were your coping mechanisms? Partying, obviously one of them, but any others?
Yeah. And this is a realization that I've only come to recently, maybe being able to admit, but by going back and reading my journals, I now know it to be true because I've kept a journal. But one thing my father gave me, he's a writer.
Yeah.
I have a daily diary pretty much going from age 16.
Oh,
So I
that's
have
so
like
cool.
25, 35, actually 35 years of journals. Wow. Which is beautiful. But without the partying, without those coping mechanisms, I would be dead. Like the isolation would have killed me. I 100% would have like gone off in a way that was unhealthy. And I know I would not be here.
Weird.
So I want to acknowledge like partying saved my life.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
yeah, and we can argue about, oh, did it make things worse or did it numb things there? So many of my best friends that I have to this day are from people that I met during that period. You know, I learned so much. Yes, there are some people and things that I've hurt that I've got to go back and look at, but I have so few regrets because I felt like I was able to live a very big life and experience all of the things that I read about in books. But partying and drugs definitely being a coping mechanism. The other one being just a chronic overdoing and overbeing.
Yeah, overfunctioning.
Yeah. So I'm diagnosed ADHD, although I don't love to identify with that as much. I will say I am an overdoer. And so I was constantly, taking jobs, trying to get to the top as soon as possible, like earning money, working 3 or 4 jobs. I'm a cellist, so I was playing cello. I was doing sports. I was doing yoga. I was, living in 3 different places at a time. I was constantly vacationing, and just there was a lot of overdoing at that time of my life.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting with one of the things that you said around that the partying wasn't like, yes, you were numbing and coping, but there was a lot of good that came through it. Because one of the things that I learned in my 30s was, in my 20s when I was partying a lot and you're out and you're like out, you're having all night conversations with people and you lose your inhibition. So you're able to like, if you're a verbal processor, you're talking through all your biggest problems, your desires. And yes, maybe like chemicals helped you get there. But I actually think in my 20s, it actually really helps me process some big stuff, even though I think there was a foundation of me numbing and not realizing at the time, like I'm not under any illusions. But like I think back and the connections that some of my best friends who are still my friends, like you've got those party friends that you've never seen again, and we all know who they are, right? But the ones who stuck around and you actually still have alignment with, like, it's just fascinating that I was able to have that level of depth with them in my 20s. The interesting thing for me was then in my 30s, it was a bit harder to have those conversations because I think I'd relied on having my guard lifted by alcohol or other chemicals. Do you know what I mean? And so I had to do a lot of work to be able to have those conversations, but completely sober, like I do on Limitless now. So just curious, did you have any realizations like that? And how does that impact the work you do today?
Yeah. Well, just briefly, if we can, you talked about like verbal processing.
Yeah.
Certain people are that. I've been seeing this crop up more and more of like a percentage of people verbally process versus other things. What is the breakdown on that? Like, what are the different processing methods? Do you know what that is or what percentage of people like process verbally?
I don't know the percentages to be I could look it up, but like some people speak to think, others will like, and that's more extroverts if you want to like go under umbrella terms. People who are more introverted are more likely to sit with their thoughts and maybe write it out or think it through, but they will think before sharing. Whereas this is why I have a podcast. I'll be like, I just thought of that then while you were talking and it reminded me of that time. And so by me sharing, I'm processing and integrating and joining the dots in my brain around what's happened and creating new neural pathways. So it's just different preferences, I think, in personality and how your brain functions.
Yes. And that would track with me too, because even in those journals, my journals are very stream of consciousness. Like it's just, nowadays I actually speak out my journals. I just speak and just do transcriptions on them. Beautiful. Sorry. And I forgot the last question.
So in terms of, I talked about how in my younger years, I was actually able to have pretty unguarded, unarmored conversations because of the chemicals in my body. And a lot of people still do that with alcohol. Like if I've had a hard day at work, I have a glass of wine, and I can talk about how shit the day was because I've got 2 red wines in my body. Like it's sort of socially acceptable in many ways. So I was wondering with you, like now, have you noticed like a difference in how you are able to process your trauma or your grief or your emotions, even the positive ones, with or without substances?
Very much so. And I've learned that I get to create environments in which it's easier for me to do that, and easier for other people to do that, because I can, once I did learn though that on my own, and a little background history, yes, I did struggle with alcohol and substances, and I've done multiple years of sobriety. I went out and I went to like, I think 150 parties and festivals in 2 years, completely sober, and was able to have a lot of experiences there. But sometimes I get into these situations and I want to go deep really fast and I want to like drop in with people, and not everyone is available for that. It's not always the right environment. And so actually a way that when I was living in Los Angeles, some friends and I started something during COVID. It was like a moon circle. Every new and full moon, we would meet on the beach, and it was like a sharing circle where we would, based on the astrology of the month, we would share what was coming up in our lives. And we would have these really deep shares about, that a lot of people were growing and changing and moving in those places. And to have a space that I could every 2.5 weeks just process and share and hear other people doing the same was one of the most healing things I've ever done.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I love that you say that, because I've talked about the launch of this season, which was, this season's all about connection, human connection. Mm-hmm. And how I was like, I'm no longer here for surface level conversations.
Yeah.
And like, I literally have like changed my work so that I like work with people's subconscious, which is like not even what's in their zone of awareness. And I love that when people have opportunities like these moon circles, or with coaches or with therapists or whoever, to like, or with friends, particular friends, where you can go deeper, because your openness to go deeper is going to be mirrored by the people who are with you. So I'm sure you've noticed, because you're happy to go deep, people who are open to it will open up really fast, and you like skip through all those layers and straight into the good stuff.
Yes. I love it.
I love it too. In terms of when you went sober to all these festivals, what surprised you the most about being sober at a place where in the past, a lot of people are on different substances and stuff, and you probably were in the past? What surprised you the most about when you were there?
2 things. One, how easy it was, like how ready my body was to kind of go to that same frequency and level even without the substances.
Yeah.
So I could be at a festival and other people could be on an ecstasy or be on something, and I couldn't have nothing in my system and feel on the frequency with them just by being in that environment.
Love it.
And that was like surprising, a little bit scary, but once I learned to, if I want to lean into that, I can. If not, I get to step back from that. But realizing how easy and accessible that feeling was for me, that I sort of had that within me. And 2, also very conscious of my desire to chase nostalgia and to want to recreate something that maybe didn't need to be recreated in the same way that it had before. Mm-hmm. And that's a really big part of I have a method called the Party Within. That's like the 7-stage sequence that helps people move through kind of letting go of nostalgia and finding the party within them that matches who they are in the present and the future.
Yay.
But I had to, it really showed me the ways that I still wanted validation from 22-year-olds. And I still wanted to be seen or perceived in certain ways that when I wasn't covering up with the alcohol or substances were like naked in my desperation for that. And so that was a big learning for me too.
You know what, like both of those points are quite resonant. I think what I get nostalgic about is like, it was just like the level of fun and how like high a frequency and how vibe you could actually be. And I think also had to do with like, you just didn't have, like, you weren't adulting really. You were just like, you had different, like you didn't have, I've got 3 kids now and a business and all these mortgages and like all the things. Like it really was a very free, incredible time. And I have zero regrets of how much fun I had in my 20s because I will not ever have that time again.
Yes.
And so I am grateful for it, even though I made some pretty big mistakes and was a bit of a dickhead sometimes. But I really agree with you on the frequency bit. And I love that you led with that because I also am very intuitive and quite sensitive and have got like neurodiversity all around me. So even though I don't have a diagnosis, there's definitely some neurospiciness in my body and brain. And I actually think because you are more open, I think that you get more out of the frequency of music and you get more energy from people around you. And so part of it I've been wondering as well was it like super overwhelming when I was younger because I didn't actually have the tools in place and I didn't understand what was going on. Whereas now I comfortably could put myself in those environments and just be like, let's just like go as hard as we like, as sober as a judge. And even with my kids there, do you know what I mean? Because I understand my own energetic and emotional boundaries and stuff like that. So I was wondering, like, does that resonate with you?
Very much so. And I think one of the learnings that I've had too is why I felt so much more comfortable in a rave at 3 a.m. with the lights and the sounds and all of those is there was like a stimming element to it, right? That I kind of was able to, my nervous system felt safe there as opposed to, sitting at some of my least favorite things are, the big birthday dinners where everyone goes and sits like 20 people around a table.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting next to 2 people and you can't really hear anyone talking. Like those, I've gotten better at being in those environments, but just feeling trapped and not able to have deep conversations. You're trapped in this shallow thing and you don't really get to move around and able to do that more. But something about being in those warehouses, the festivals, you can move around and have these deep connections or shut things off. But also I was absorbing those frequencies. Yeah.
Yeah. And they would have been lighting you up without actually, it was very unconscious, I think, what we were doing in our like younger years. Cause I think you were self-selecting to put yourself in those environments because it did make you feel so good. But then the aftermath didn't always feel so great day after.
Yes. and I think my mom actually understood this a lot more than I did. Mm. And this guilt that I opened up with feeling.
Yeah.
I've since gone back to look at some of my journals and I did some recordings and I've talked with my father who was there. And, his recollection of me going to that music festival while she was in hospice, he was like, that's what she wanted more than anything. He was like, she knew that that's what you needed to like feel like yourself. And that made her so happy when you were in that. And when you found those ways to fully be yourself, that made her very happy. But, from my perspective, at least at the time, I can't feel this grief. I need to go, numb and go somewhere else with this. But that other people even that loved me saw a different side of it. So I think there's so much subconscious, unconscious things going on too.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, once you get to like this stage in life, it doesn't actually matter about other people's perspectives of what you were doing. If you were like not coping and you were like partying because you're not coping, it doesn't like that's beautiful sentiment that your mum thought that, but like
Yes.
you weren't doing okay.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
So,
Yes.
yeah. You mentioned like your spiritual and intuitive side. Do you have a connection to your mum since her passing?
Yes, very much so. She's a gardener, and so I see a lot in nature and flowers, and it's
Oh,
there. But I'll actually share a dream. I do quite a bit of dream work,
cool.
and it comes in phases. I'll have 2 to 3 months where I get really intense dreams. Early on, I had a lot of really scary dreams, with my mom appearing. But about a year ago, maybe a little more than that, she appeared, and we were in the house that I grew up in. And it was a smaller house and this little kitchen where she would put on music and sort of always, we would dance till UB40, I remember as a kid. And, she walked in the room and walked under the sink and brought out a trash can or a trash bag and picked it up. And I said, Mom, I don't know. I've talked about legacy. I was like, I just don't know if I'm making you proud. Like, I don't know if I'm doing that. And she smiled and she handed me the trash bag and she said, just keep taking out the trash, honey. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Which to me, but there's layers to it. But one, letting go of things, right?
Yeah, releasing.
Constantly releasing. But two, I do deal with clutter a lot in my mind, in my body, in my friendships, in my relationships, physically.
Yeah.
And I notice that when I do declutter, my spiritual life gets so much bigger and better.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was just a beautiful dream to see and get from her.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have other people come to you in your dreams, or is it mostly your mom?
I do. My grandmother, so her mom, actually
Yeah.
just passed this last year.
Uh-huh.
And she had pretty severe dementia, Alzheimer's, for the last couple of years and didn't recognize me as much.
Yeah.
And towards the end, we finally, she wanted it. We tried to keep her in her house as long as possible. But eventually my aunt made the decision to move her into memory care. And so we had been visiting her, and she had basically stopped eating, and they kept telling her, it'll be tomorrow. She'll probably pass. We're visiting. But she held on for, I think it was like 16, 18 days of being there. And one morning, I woke up from a dream where I'd gone to the hospital and she started singing this song from Dvorak's New World Symphony, Going Home, which is all about like going into the next world. We're like this German family. I'm a family. So it's literally about like transitioning to the next world. I woke up, I was like, I think grandma's going to pass today. I called my aunt and grandma passed that day.
Oh, wow. I've got goosebumps. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. What do you think about connection in like the stage of life you are now compared to maybe when you were in your 20s? Like, how has connection evolved for you?
I've been starting to write on this because I don't know. I truly believe that so many people are hungry for connection.
Desperate for connection.
And also people are flaking more than ever. I've done a lot of work to try to host events, and I used to throw parties. 500 people come to my parties.
Yeah.
And it's my stage of life. I'll be 40 this year, and I have friends with kids, and there's different ways that people are there. But even in the phone calls and the conversations, the way that I'm connecting, people are just having it feels more difficult for people. And I don't know what we're being prepared for as like a collective, as a humankind. I think that I've been reading a lot of Emerson lately. And he wrote a lot about the soul and about self-reliance. How do we rely on our own soul to also connect with others? And I do feel like we're being asked to go inward, to reinvestigate what do I really want, deserve. The institutions that used to do all this connecting for us, I think, are decaying.
Yeah.
And so we're being asked to connect in different ways that are maybe deeper and a lot more uncomfortable than people are maybe ready for right now. And I feel like I'm ready and a lot of other people are not ready yet. And so it's a little lonely sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating because I know like there's a lot coming to the surface, I would say, right now about the world that we thought we knew that is not necessarily the case.
Yes.
And depending on how conscious people are, I think they're at different levels of realization. And some people are going to stay blissfully unaware and die blissfully unaware. And at times I wish I was them. But I agree with you. I feel like we're at we're approaching some form of major shift in like human consciousness and humanity, which is you can look at that through the lens of fear, but you can also look at it through the lens of possibility. And some of the people I read, they're talking about this is the light winning and that the evil is going to go away. So yeah, it is a fascinating time to be alive. Um, what do you think of the impact of like digital connectivity compared to human connection and how that's influencing where people are at? Because we do have a loneliness epidemic. Like it's founded by a lot of scientific research and it's in nearly every culture in the world. What are your thoughts?
So first of all, I'm very optimistic. I used my first podcast was called Toxic Positivity. And it was kind of pulling back the curtains on some of those things that are positive. But I've kind of come fully around of it's important that we don't numb and disregard our negative feelings and feeling lonely and say, yes, that is true. And also, these are trade-offs that we are complicit in.
100%.
And we now have these tools in our pockets that connect us instantly for free, basically to any person in the world. We have algorithms, we have ways to learn, like all these things that were previously locked in cathedrals and universities are now accessible and free. Yeah. And we can feel the pain that someone is in a different country instantly.
Yeah.
And yes, that's going to come with trade-offs. And it's going to come with, I think a lot of us are feeling now, maybe overwhelmed, I think is something that's there, or that there's always a better choice. And so we're lonely because we're always waiting for, well, there's something better. There's something better. There's something better. Instead of looking out our window and being like, my neighbor probably could use help, raking the lawn or something. But I'm optimistic in that we are moving, accelerating. And one of the reasons why I like to use partying as it's like a marketing tool to get people to realize you don't need any money or anything to host a 2-person party in your kitchen today. Like you don't actually need all the bells and whistles. You just need a couple other people to be present with you. And that I do think like partying and our new perspective on what that means will save humanity, because I think we can overthink and isolate and change, but the ability to get on this frequency with other people and scroll less and find more in the present with people is people will get there.
Yeah. So when you talk about partying, it has like obviously different definition. I mean, everything is a different perspective to all of us depending on our life's experiences. But in terms of how you define a party, is it like 2 or more people in connection in the same space, like in physical proximity, or how would you describe it?
When I'm asked very basic, like party, the word itself is a paradox and it's a contronym in that it means its own opposite. So party is the original word, like partir is to split off, right? So think of like a hunting party, right? So it's people that are splitting off. But then once it's split off, a party is as a collective, it's a group of people, right? So it's one, if you're confused about what party means, don't be, everyone is. But I very simply, party, to take part in, to participate, right? So if you're alone in your apartment slamming beers, you're not partying, right? That's different. You're not participating. But if you are taking part in, if it's something participatory, we can get into some other parts of the definition, but it's very basic. I think to take part in is how I would define party.
Yeah, cool. And what are some types of parties that might appeal to people like similar? I'm a few years older than you, but like, we've gone out of the partying as we knew it. And a lot of people, as you say, me included, have had kids, and then you sort of can get a bit stuck at home when your kids are younger.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of coming out of that again, it's like, well, what does partying look like? Because you don't really want to go and drink to 2 a.m. and you can't dance all night anymore, like all those sort of things. So what kinds of parties do you think work really well for people who are in midlife, who miss that part of their life?
I'm actually co-hosting a party this Saturday at this place called Oak Street Sauna here in Chicago, which is like a sauna that's on the beach in Chicago.
Wow.
And so it's like a beautiful heated sauna that's like right on the beach, and we'll have speakers and music, and it's like so St. Patrick's Day celebration is Saturday here. And it'll be like a crazy day, but I'll be co-hosting this party it'll be probably 20 of us hanging out in a sauna, listening to music on a Saturday night, like in Chicago. And that is so fun to me because we get to have those deeper conversations.
Yeah.
And you're still doing something where your body is experiencing an altered state. You're kind of doing something sauna related.
Yeah.
But that's been really fun. I have been loving kind of where fitness meets nightlife. So there's been a lot of these, yoga and deep house music that they'll do in the mornings.
Yeah.
And
or break on. I know in Australia where I'm from, they are doing like these sunrise dance parties, but everyone's getting out of bed and bringing a coffee. They're not going there after having danced all night in a club. So yeah.
So I think those are great options, and we're still experimenting. Some of these things I think are failed experiments. They were doing these coffee house raves here that were I didn't love.
Yeah, they've tried that here in Vancouver, but I don't think they were very well subscribed to.
Yeah, I didn't love, but I love that people are trying, and I love that we're experimenting with what different ways to do this will feel like. So those are really good. My friends and I brought back poker night, just a very simple old school thing that we get together and we play poker, and we, one of us watches the kids and everyone does that. But just those basic things that we used to do that you still have to schedule in. But I think it's important that we still have things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of those examples have got an experience or an activity like at the core. I think for women, maybe more than men, you can just have like catch up and it's sober and you're just chatting, because I think that's maybe slightly more feminine energy. But I know guys can do that too. But even like just going for a walk like with a group of people.
Yes.
And like I live right on the edge of the forest. It's like such a cool way to like just chat, and nature's good for the nervous system, like great for connection.
There was this, so Chicago's doing really cool stuff right now, but there was this app last summer, it's called Pi. People were able to host free events essentially. And one of those people started hosting was a scream club where they would go and just scream into the lake. And it's like hundreds of people would show up and scream into the lake. And then they all started making friends and hanging out. But it was as simple as that, like a 10-minute scream at the same time. Yeah. So I think people are getting creative and they want things like this. We used to have, if you look at like the 50s, 60s, things like churches and like lodges and clubs and people were really a part of these institutions that had rituals and traditions, and you paid a lot of money through tithing or through fees to be a part of these things. And everyone complains about, there's no, third spaces and it's hard to hang out. Like, we might return to something where we are going to pay for these experiences and these community things, and we'll reinvent what that means for us now. But I do think that we are in a period of reinvention. How are we going to integrate technology or not with this? I'm actually feeling we'll probably look at the same way of social media for kids as we do cigarettes, I think, in another 15, 20 years. I think I think that it's really dangerous the way that we use social media, expose kids and teens to social media, and the way that we use it now today. I think we will learn how to set boundaries around it that will allow for more positive connection in the future. But
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
belief.
Are you a big supporter of like in-person connection rather than online connection?
I think both are great.
Mm.
I've met such cool people. I go to several meetings that I've been going to for 4 or 5 years where I've never met the people in person, and they're
Yeah.
some of the tightest people I know.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of agnostic on it, but I do think you need both.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just, I think I went like in COVID, it was like convenient. And then I like didn't want to come back out of my shell into in person, but like, and it's been amazing for me to be able to build a global business because I could do it online. But then this year I've moved to in-person retreats as one of my offerings. And like,
Mhm.
there is just magic that goes down when
Yes.
you do this kind of, have these kinds of conversations with other people, and being in each other's energy is very underrated, but very powerful. So
What kind of retreats do you?
it's called the one that I've been running is called the Reconnection Retreat. So they're coming to reconnect to their mind, their body, and then also the other people in the room. And so it's similar to what I said. There's no surface level conversation. We go straight to the real stuff, like what are you avoiding?
Yeah.
And people talk about it, and they're like, I've never said this out loud. I'm like, that's okay. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, oh my God, I do that too. And I'm like, yeah, we all do. Like, there's no secrets. I know this because I coach people every day, and they're like, you're going to find this surprising. And in my head, I'm like, no, I won't.
Yes. I actually just had a call last night with a group that we went on a retreat in 2022.
Yep.
In Costa Rica. It was called the Conscious Creators Retreat. And we were kind of like
yeah.
early TikTokers that were doing kind of like
Yeah.
conscious creative stuff. But
Yeah.
we've done a call every 2 months for 4 years.
Oh, I
and
love
have seen
that.
each other through all kinds of things. But because we went in person to do this thing, we are still connected all these years later.
Yeah, I always say that, like I'm doing short, like what I call mini retreats at the moment, but the like 4, 5, 6 day retreats that I've done are like, they're absolutely jet powered transformation. And in terms of connection, because you just go places alongside these people who arrive as strangers and they leave as like soul sisters.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And you can't explain it to people. You have to experience it, which that's a lot of my work. It's very experiential. So it's actually can be hard to message because it's like, it's actually a felt and a sensed thing rather than a cognitive thing, which it sounds like your work is too.
Yes. And that has been, maybe again, tying it back to the trauma of death and grief. I was praised a lot growing up for my intellectual ability. And I went to a college that was literally it was like life of the mind. And it was a very, ivory tower. Our mind can fix everything. If you just learn enough, if you read enough, if you think about it enough, you can fix the problem.
Yeah.
And if I could go back and tell myself anything sort of before, during, after that, it's that I know you love your mind, Evan, but your body and your soul are what's going to get you through this. And I don't know if I had anyone that told me that. I tried to go to therapy and talk it out. And I think my therapist did the best they could, but they weren't, at least at that time, I didn't choose the right therapist who got me into my body. It was still a very talking kind of a thing. And so it wasn't, and I think I was trying to get into my body by going on benders, but
no, you were getting into your body. It was just you were using substances to get there rather. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And like I now know how to get into my body without substances, but in my 20s, it's very intuitively, I was knowing I needed to go there. So it's very fascinating when you can look back retrospective, like, oh, my body knew what to do. I had to like hack my brain to get there with chemicals. But that's fascinating. In terms of where you are now, where do you see partying going in the next 10 years?
So I used to have a vision of I don't want to shift or change anything. I think the universe and the planet is going to move in whatever direction it does. I would like what I'm feeling more attracted to. There's these no phone parties and raves that they're doing where they're,
Yeah.
taking people's phones and removing it from there. And I'm
Yeah.
really attracted to those right now.
Yeah, I saw, I don't know if you know the DJ Fred again and getting, I'm sure everyone knows him,
Love,
right?
yeah.
And he did a series and
Mhm.
some of them were no phone. And so when I saw the video footage of it, there was something ignited in me of like, oh my God, that's what it used to be like.
Yes.
Like we used to be there dancing and just having the best time in the moment with our friends. And when that age for me, we had phones, we could have been taking photos, but we were not. Maybe we had cameras actually, I can't remember, but we weren't taking photos. We were actually more in the moment. Whereas now you go to a gig and it's like you're spending the whole time like getting past the people, because I'm sure the people's like cameras in front of your
Mhm.
head.
Yes.
So I love that. And it was so refreshing to see that happening now in 2026.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing that I'm excited about. I'm also excited about this return to a more like body centric, smaller party vibe.
Yeah, cool.
That more retreats and more 3-day experiences will
Yep.
be something that people do. Instead of needing to go to Costa Rica, there'll be something in, every town where, mom can leave the kids with dad for a weekend and go on this retreat or go on this, like to be able to have these experiences at a smaller, more intimate level.
Yeah.
I think I'm encouraged by things like that because not everything has to be this crazy big thing.
Yeah.
We can bring one more thing. This used to be when we lived in tribes,
Yeah. Back in the day.
initiations
Mm,
and experiences of dissolving our ego into a group and a collective were
yeah.
very common. And you would do this as a family. And like now we have weddings and funerals, but oftentimes they're so diluted or caked with alcohol or removed from the experience of the ritual
Yeah.
that we aren't really getting out of them what we need.
Yeah. Like the intention behind a lot of the ceremony was very felt and experienced. Whereas now you see people like in the lead up to their wedding and they're crying and they're like, I'm just trying to make my parents happy. And you're like, what the fuck? It's your, like,
Yes.
that's one of the reasons why I was like, I don't want to have a wedding because it's not, I just feel like it's so far from the point of why you would have one.
Yes.
Um, yeah, it's really fascinating. The one thing that I was reflecting on before this conversation was around the getting into your body in the party sense, because I remember going to music festivals when I was younger, and I would usually be drinking and stuff. So I was in an altered state, I would say. And a lot of the time it was like, how do I look and how am I dancing? And it's like, there's that guy looking at me. Like it was very performative as much as I think there probably was a time where in the night where you flipped out of that and you're like, I'm just going to have a good time and like be with your friends. But there was quite often a little bit of performance based or proving. Do you know what I mean? But I always was enamored by the people at these festivals who were like, totally just in their own world and in their body, which now is very, for me, like somatic. And it's all about how they're feeling in the moment and their presence in their body. And like, I wonder whether or not, did you experience that, like from going from the party boy where you were taking drugs and drinking and stuff to like when you went to some of the festivals and stuff and you didn't have any of those chemicals in your body? Did you get to experience that just being with yourself and being in the moment?
Yes, I did. And also I looked better because
Oh yeah, because you weren't messy.
I just had more presence, not even physically, like
Yeah,
even at my worst addiction, I looked pretty great because I was living on the west side of LA and just, was over obsessed with my looks.
looking after yourself. Yeah.
But my, what I chose to wear and how I chose to present myself was less covered up, right? I used to wear like a lot of like stars and sequins and things around me. And I felt a lot less need for that when
Yeah.
I was sober.
Yep.
And so I was able to approach that with less of a mask, which was really cool and beautiful.
Yeah. And I guess as well, like, when you're sober, your energy is cleaner. So your like magnetism would have, and frequency, as you said earlier, would have been dialed up. So you're like this super attractor just
Yes.
based on your energy, nothing else. Don't need stars,
Yes.
don't need the bells and whistles to make you look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it. I love it.
I will just, for anyone listening to this, is that possible for me? If you're wondering that, this is your party coach telling you, yes, it's possible for you. And also, for many people, it's like the gym. And the first time you go in, you're not going to be able to put, two 45-pound things on there and lift. You're going to have to start with something a little smaller, or you're going to, it's like a muscle to build that comfortability and to have that somatic connection, to be in those spaces if you're not used to being there without substances or alcohol. But it's very possible.
Yes. And also, it will feel uncomfortable because your nervous system and your body isn't used to being in those situations without alcohol. So if you feel discomfort, then you're doing it right.
Exactly.
But just breathe through the uncomfortability of it, because that's usually the hardest part. I ask everyone this final question before we go into some rapid fire. So transformation often happens in these small intentional steps, like we say, like building the muscles gradually in the gym. And it's in these micro movements that we start to access deeper access to ourselves and unlock change that is long lasting and sustainable. Based on your journey, Evan, what's one step or action our listeners today could take to unlock their limitless potential?
It's not about you. So my invitation for you is, what helped for me is when I got into those party environments and maybe I was anxious, it wasn't about trying to shift or change that anxiousness. I looked for someone else who was anxious. I helped them feel like they belong. I would go into environments and shift away from how do I look or how I perceived to, if I was that person there, what would help me feel good or help me feel like that and find purpose inside of that. And that my mission is to reconnect humanity through party culture. And if you can bring your energy to the party, whatever that is, whether that's, after daycare or going to a rave or Burning Man, but getting out of your own way and connecting with someone else, helping them feel like they belong.
Yeah.
The transformation comes 2 or 3 times faster for yourself because you're becoming a portal for that transformation. It's not just happening for you, it's happening for someone else.
Yeah. You know what's pinging for me as well is like the letting go of the identity of who you were as a party person in your 20s, because you're in your 40s or 50s. You're a different person. You're not that person. You will never be them again. So come at it from a blank canvas rather than like trying to be that person and inserting it into your life today, because it doesn't work that way. So just go in with a blank canvas and see what emerges. Okay.
Yes.
When was the last time you broke your own rules and what happened?
Man, so I was trying to do a 3-day or a 5-day juice fast these last couple of days. I made it 3.5 days. I just broke it before this podcast because I was so hungry. Yeah. So I broke it today, but it was good. I felt I got a lot out of it. So,
well, 3.5 days is pretty serious.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What's a part of yourself you used to hide, but now you choose to lead with?
I think how much I love to try. I'm a try hard, and that's okay. I'm somebody that likes to try hard. I'm seen as someone who try hard, and I used to try to hide that. Now it's just, that's who I am. I don't mind if you see me trying.
Yeah, it's amazing. What's your superpower?
I believe I can help people see that they have a party within them, no matter who you are, no matter how anxious, crazy, overconfident, insecure, whatever you are, I do believe that I can sit across from anyone and help them see that.
Yeah, I love that. When you hear the word limitless, what are 3 words, feelings, sensations that are evoked in you?
When I hear limitless, the first thing I think of is in middle school math. I remember looking at like limits and the limits on the graph and
Yeah.
asking the teacher, I was like, when does the graph end? So he's like, it's limitless. And I'd be like, so does it wrap all the way around? Like, is it a circle? And I was trying to come up with the concept of limitless. And I still spend a lot of time thinking about infinity and sort of what that means. But to me, I don't have to see the end to know that spiraling upwards, it's not a straight line, but like spiraling up to me feels like limitless.
Yeah, I love that. That's cool. And finally, Evan, if you're feeling a bit low or down, which I'm sure is not that often, but if you do, what's a song that you like to put on to lift your mood and vibration?
Whitney Houston, Dance with Somebody.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that is.
It's overdone, but it's so good. It works every single time.
I know. And you only actually need to hear the first few beats and you're like, yes.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, well, Evan, thank you for coming on Limitless today. I've really loved our conversation. And you know what? I don't think we talk about partying enough in midlife. And so that was why when you approached me, I was like, yeah, I want you to come on because I think it's something that a lot of people are missing and they don't know what it should look and feel like and who they should be in at this stage in their life. So I'm hoping that people have got some new ideas, know how to approach it, and just give it a go. Like, as we say, go and build that muscle, rebuild it, because I know most of you had it and you haven't lost it. Muscle memory comes back very quickly if you give it a chance. So thank you, Evan. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Fiona. Thanks so much for having me. And I felt my mom here today too, who loved a good party. And I don't know exactly what she'd feel about how I spend my life today, but I think she would be happy to know that we're finding ways to process and to get in our bodies and to party through life. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to Limitless. If you enjoyed today's episode and love hearing the stories of courageous cycle breakers, I'd be grateful if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your feedback not only helps others discover the show, but it also amplifies our mission to unlock emotional freedom and true potential. Every review makes a difference in helping more people embrace their limitless life.